Hey, and welcome to another Rhino tutorial. Today we'll be talking about object properties. We're going to start talking about object properties with these objects. One of the simplest object properties to edit in Rhino is color, so we'll start there. Now you can see I have a row of purple squares, orange triangles, and yellow circles. Right now, this geometry is getting its color from the layer that it's on. So you can see over here in my layers panel that circles are yellow, triangles are blue, and rectangles are purple. If I want to change any of this color, I can click on the color swatch and change to a different color with the colored pencils or with a more accurate slider system. It's up to you. But if I only want to change the color of one of these objects, while still keeping it on the same layer, there's a different way to do that. So I'll select this orange triangle, and this triangle is a hatch. So over here in the properties panel, you'll see all the information for that hatch come up. If we go over here to properties objects, you'll see where this triangle gets its color from. Right now, the color is on by layer, which means it's inheriting its color from the layer. Same thing with the rest of its properties. So one of the things we can do is for display color, we're going to change it to custom. And right now our display color is set to black. Let's change it to something like this silver. So when we click off, you'll see that this object is now silver. One of the other things we can change about hatch geometry is how the pattern is filled in. So right now it's set to a solid, but we can also choose from any of these hatch patterns. So we can use stripes, we can use a checkerboard pattern, a grid pattern, and you can change the scale of that pattern by coming up here and typing something in. So we can change it to scale 5. Now the pattern is much bigger. I'll turn Gumball off so you can see that a little easier. Or we can change it to 0.5, so it's much smaller. You can also use these arrow keys to fine-tune. We can also change the pattern rotation, so let's switch to something like lines so it's a little easier to see. And we can rotate this pattern at any degree that we type into the command line. Here we'll keep it at rotated 45 degrees. Say I want this purple square to match the hatch I have on my orange triangle. All I have to do is select match and then click the hatch that I want to match, and now they are the same. The difference here you'll see is that this hatch is still inheriting its color from its layer. So hatch properties are different from color properties. So when you match your hatch properties, it's only going to be matching what you see in this panel and not necessarily the color. If I select the outline that is making this hatch triangle, I can come over here and look at its properties. If I click on this line that is outlining our triangle, and I come over to the properties panel, you'll see that there's a difference between display color and print color. And you also have the option of line type and print width. Now, it's important to remember that these things are different in Rhino because most of the time you'll be working in the display view and not in the print view. So right now let's keep our display color on orange. Let's change our print color to custom. Now our print color is going to be black. Our print width we can set to something like 1, so very thick. And then line type we'll set to something like dashed. Now, when I click off of this object, none of those things are going to appear immediately. That's because we're working in display view. To change to print display, we're going to have to come over to the command line and type print display. Now, when print display comes up, you'll see this little menu over here. And what we want to look at right now is state. So right now, the state for print display is off. We want to turn that on, and then we're going to press done. So with print display on, you'll see that this line looks completely different. We have our 1 point thickness. It's now black. And if we look back in our settings here, we'll see that we have Linetype dash selected. But when I zoom in, this line looks solid. It doesn't look dashed at all. And the reason for that is dash has a specific scale to it. So if we were to make these objects larger by using the scale command, we'll see now that this line type is dashed. We can change it to something like dots to make the line type all dots. But for now, I'm going to change it back to by layer. The next thing we're going to talk about is grouping objects. So all of these objects are on one layer, same with these, but if we want to think of these as independent groups, we can group them by selecting them all, typing group, and now when we select one of them, we select all of them. It's worth noting that you can have several layers of groupings, so we can take our existing group and add another member to that group by selecting it, holding down Shift, and typing group. Now all of these things are grouped, but it's important to note that the structure of the group is dependent on the order in which you group them. What I mean by that is, since we grouped these three objects first, they are the first group. Then we grouped this group with this object. So now we have an object and a group in a group. This is easier to see when we start ungrouping things. So if I no longer want this object to be part of the group anymore, I type ungroup. And if I only type ungroup once, our initial group still stays grouped, but this leaves the group. Now if I type ungroup again, it will go down the next layer, and now none of these things are grouped anymore. Grouping is a very convenient way to organize geometry that isn't dependent on layer systems. So for example, if I had all of these objects grouped, but I had my triangles layer off, I can still select this as a group, and if I move my group and turn my triangles back on, you'll see that even though this triangle was hidden, it will still move with the group. Now that we've covered group, let's talk about lock. Now you already know that we can lock layers in the layers panel to make those layers unselectable. I locked the triangles and rectangles layer, and now we can only select circles. I can unlock those layers by clicking on them here, but we can also do the same thing with individual objects. So say I want to lock this triangle. I select that triangle and type lock. Now that that triangle is locked, I can't select it anymore. Now remember, since I'm in print display, when I lock this object, it still shows how it's going to print. If I were to turn print display off, like this, you'll see that this triangle has become grayed out. When objects are a dark gray like this, it means they've been successfully locked. So when I make a window selection over this area, it will not select this triangle. To unlock layers, just type unlock. Now this triangle is selectable. Now say I want to lock this entire field except for this triangle. What I can do is first lock this triangle and then type lock swap. And what lock swap does is it locks everything that is unlocked and unlocks everything that is locked. So now only our triangle is selectable. I can free all these objects again by typing unlock. But now let's go back to that scenario where everything was locked. Say I want to unlock just some of these objects. One of the things I can do is type unlock selected. Now, this triangle disappeared because it's not locked. What it is showing me right now is all the objects that are locked currently. So what I can do is select the objects that I want to unlock. Remember, this is a group, so that group's selected, and I'm going to unlock this as well. So once all those objects are selected that I want to unlock, I'm going to hit done, and now those objects are unlocked. Now let's talk about hide. So just like group and unlock, hide is another way to organize your geometry. Hide is similar to lock, but whereas lock will lock the object and still show it, hide will hide the object completely. So if I select this triangle and type hide, that triangle is now gone. I can do the same thing with groups, and just like with lock, hide also has a swap and a selected variant. So I'll type hide swap to swap everything that's hidden, and if I want to show those objects again, I just type show. Now I can hide all those things again and type show selected. Just like we did with lock, I'm going to show these things, hit enter, and now those are shown and these are still hidden. Group, lock, and hide are essential to the Rhino workflow. Once your file has a lot of geometry in it, you'll find yourself using these commands a lot in tandem with the layer modifiers to be able to move and select objects of different types. So that's it for object properties. Join us in the next tutorial, and we'll be talking about geometry modification.